If you live on the internet, the chances are pretty good that at some point somebody has called you a sheep and told you that you need to wake up to the truth. And the truth on the internet often comes in the form of a red pill. There are hundreds or possibly thousands of websites and blogs and YouTube videos that promote taking the red pill. And by swallowing it, you can find the truth on nearly anything. 9/11, UFOs, climate change, gender relations, FEMA camps, the homosexual agenda, the Jews, all the things that are either being covered up by the mainstream media or talked about in a confusingly nuanced manner. The beauty of the red pill is that it converts extremely complex issues into easily understandable dualities, and provides the pill taker with a comforting feeling of being part of an exclusive club made up of people who are more perceptive than the common herd. Sort of like Mensa for anti-Semites and misogynists. When you take the pill, it's a bit like putting an image into Photoshop, turning it black and white and applying a filter. It causes all the ambiguities to disappear, and that makes it easier to decide where you stand, which in turn makes any subsequent discussions of the topic much more dramatically satisfying. One side effect, though, that I've noticed is that people who take the red pill don't seem to be very happy. It does appear that it's a depressant and that it may be linked to raised blood pressure, irritability, anger, aggression, social dysfunction and the failure of ability to think critically. So probably not recommended if you're already suffering from any psychological issues that tend to make you miserable. And there's another reason to be wary of the red pill. I haven't been able to find out who actually manufactures it, but let's face it, there's a high probability that it's Big Pharma.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here and an honor to be at Republica. For the last 1,000 years, we our mothers and our fathers have been struggling for freedom of thought. We have sustained many horrible losses and some immense victories. And we are now at a very serious time. From the adoption of printing by Europeans in the 15th century, we began to be concerned primarily with access to printed material. The right to read and the right to publish were the central subjects of our struggle for freedom of thought for most of the last half millennium. The basic concern was for the right to read in private and to think and speak and act on the basis of a free and uncensored will. The primary antagonist for freedom of thought in the beginning of our struggle was the Universal Catholic Church, an institution directed at the control of thought in the European world, based around weekly surveillance of the conduct and thoughts of every human being, based around the censorship of all reading material, and in the end, based upon the ability to predict and to punish unorthodox thought. The tools available for thought control in early modern Europe were poor, even by 20th century standards, but they worked. And for hundreds of years, the struggle primarily centered around that increasingly important first mass manufactured article in Western culture, the book. Whether you could print them, possess them, traffic in them, read them, teach from them, without the permission or control of an entity empowered to punish thought. By the end of the 17th century, censorship of written material in Europe had begun to break down. First in the Netherlands, then in the UK, then afterwards in waves throughout the European world. And the book became an article of subversive commerce and began eating away at the control of thought. By the late 18th century, that struggle for the freedom of reading had begun to attack the substance of Christianity itself. And the European world trembled on the brink of the first great revolution of the mind. It spoke of liberté, égalité, fraternité, but actually it meant freedom to think differently. The Ancien Régime began to struggle against thinking. And we moved into the next phase of the struggle for freedom of thought, which presumed the possibility of unorthodox thinking and revolutionary acting. And for 200 years, we struggled with the consequences of those changes. That was then, and this is now. Now, we begin a new phase in the history of the human race. We are building a single nervous system which will embrace every human mind. We are less than 2 generations now from the moment at which every single human being will be connected to a single network in which all thoughts, plans, dreams, and actions will flow as nervous impulses in the network. And the fate of freedom of thought, indeed the fate of human freedom altogether, everything that we have fought for 1,000 years will depend upon the neuroanatomy of that network. Ours are the last generation of human brains that will be formed without contact with the net. From here on out, every human brain, by 2 generations from now, every single human brain will be formed from early life in direct connection to the network. Humanity will become a superorganism in which each of us is but a neuron in the brain. And we are describing now, all of us now, this generation, unique in the history of the human race, in this generation we will decide how that network is organized. Unfortunately, we are beginning badly. Here's the problem. We grew up to be consumers of media. That's what they taught us. We're consumers of media. Now, media is consuming us. The things we read, watch us read them. The things we listen to us, listen to them. We are tracked, we are monitored, we are predicted by the media we use. The process of the building of the network institutionalizes basic principles of information flow. It determines whether there is such a thing as anonymous reading. And it is determining against anonymous reading. 20 years ago, I began working as a lawyer for a man called Philip Zimmermann, who had created a form of public key encryption for mass use called pretty good privacy. The effort to create pretty good privacy was the effort to retain the possibility of secrets in the late 20th century. Phil was trying to prevent government from reading everything. And as a result, he was at least threatened with prosecution by the United States government for sharing military secrets, which is what we called public key encryption back then. We said you shouldn't do this. There will be trillions of dollars of electronic commerce if everybody has strong encryption. Nobody was interested. But what was important about pretty good privacy, about the struggle for freedom that public key encryption in civil society represented, what was crucial became clear when we began to win. In 1995, there was a debate at Harvard Law School. 4 of us discussing the future of public key encryption and its control. I was on the side, I suppose, of freedom. It's where I try to be. With me at that debate was a man called Daniel Weitzner, who now works in the White House making internet policy for the Obama administration. On the other side was the then Deputy Attorney General of the United States and a lawyer in private practice named Stuart Baker, who had been chief counsel to the National Security Agency, our listeners, and who was then in private life helping businesses to deal with the listeners. He then became, later on, the deputy for policy planning in the Department of Homeland Security in the United States and has had much to do with what happened in our network after 2001. At any rate, the 4 of us spent 2 pleasant hours debating the right to encrypt. And at the end, there was a little dinner party in the Harvard Faculty Club. And at the end, after all the food had been taken away and just the port and the walnuts were left on the table, Stuart said, "All right, among us, now that we're all in private, just us girls, I'll let our hair down." He didn't have much hair even then, but he let it down. "We're not going to prosecute your client, Mr. Zimmermann," he said. "Public key encryption will become available. We fought a long losing battle against it, But it was just a delaying tactic. And then he looked around the room and he said, but nobody cares about anonymity, do they? And a cold chill went up my spine, and I thought, all right, Stuart, now I know. You're going to spend the next 20 years trying to eliminate anonymity in human society, and I'm going to try to stop you. And we'll see how it goes. And it's going badly.
So this is Liberté here with Andy, one half of the Yes Men who do amazing creative activism work. And I was wondering, how'd you find out about the Stratfor email and what was your initial reaction to it?
We found out about the Stratfor email from folks at WikiLeaks who had discovered it, who had been given it, I guess. And they said that we were mentioned in these leaks and that we should take a look.
What did the leaks entail? Like, what was in there?
In short, the leaks talked about our involvement in the Bhopal struggle, and starting with our appearance on the BBC in 2004, and basically describing everything we did around that issue over the next few years. So, you know, I arranged a protest at the new school of students, and they covered that. I think we wrote stuff and they covered that. They basically just did research into whatever we were doing over the years.
Did they take any action, or did they propose any action against the Yes Men? I mean, this is a private, this is a private company who hired Stratfor to keep an eye on you and track you. What would be the reason to track an activist?
Well, I think they're worried. They're worried about activism. I mean, Dow was worried that something was going to happen and that we would do something else that would affect them. And I don't know what they would have done to stop us. I doubt they would have been able to do anything, but they were worried, which is a great sign. Yeah. One interesting thing about the emails, I thought, was that they were especially worried about what would happen if activists kind of made this a big corporate issue rather than just about Dow and Bhopal. But what would happen if they broadened it out and made it an issue about the whole corporate capitalist system? And they were actively discussing that, like, why don't they make this a big story about the problems with corporations, period? I don't know why they're not doing that. They seemed worried. And there were like 4 exchanges about that where they actively surmised why Amnesty and some of the other groups were just focusing on Dow and Bhopal rather than broadening it out and saying this is a symptom of this big system problem. And I found that a bit sinister that they were surmising about that. Also interesting in that seemed to be what they were really actually worried about. So
as a filmmaker, as an activist, does it feel that you're being effective when you have private intelligence companies spying on you and targeting you for your work?
It's certainly flattering. I'd say it's more a testament to their stupidity than anything else, but it's flattering.
Does it worry you?
Not personally, no. No, it worries me that they spy on the Bhopal victims, the people who are taking action that's essential to democracy, that's the most important thing they could be doing, that there are these corporate spy agencies that are spying on those people at the behest of the people who have victimized them. That worries me a lot, that we have a system that allows that. And, you know, that, I mean, why are the people at Stratfor not in jail? Yeah. Why aren't the people at Dow who hire Stratfor to spy on their victims, why aren't they in jail? Yeah. I mean, this is like, it's totally egregious. And there was actually like real wrongdoing exposed in these emails as well. It wasn't just Stratfor spying on us in a really low grade, very poor way. It was actually, they were plotting to set up a kind of insider trading scheme with Goldman Sachs around information that they were releasing. They would bet on that information. Totally illegal, and why aren't they in jail? I don't know.
It seems like a double standard when you have people like Bradley Manning and Julian Assange releasing information to the public, but then private corporations, even like Murdoch and now Stratfor, spying on activists, not even getting a slap on the wrist. I mean.
Yeah, the people that they're exposing are just scot-free and not getting hurt for any of their crimes, not getting punished for any of their crimes. And these people who are actually performing an essential role in democracy, which nobody else is doing, they're getting punished. It's really sinister.
Hello, I'm I'm Heidi Bogosian, Executive Director of the National Lawyers Guild. The National Lawyers Guild for 75 years has been representing individuals targeted by both the government and corporations for their activism. We call on Loretta Prescott, Chief Judge of the U.S. District Court of Manhattan, to immediately recuse herself in the case of Jeremy Hammond. As you know, the email address and password of Judge Prescott's husband, Thomas Cavalier, were among the pieces of data released in the crime for which Hammond stands accused. Hacking the private security firm Stratfor and releasing internal emails and personal information on Stratfor's clients. Cavalier uses the affected email address for business at the law firm Cahill, Gordon & Rindell, where he is a partner and where Judge Prescott once worked. In addition to Cavalier's personal information, private emails of major corporate clients to his law firm, including Merrill Lynch, were also disclosed in the hack. As any first-year law student knows, a judge must withdraw from hearing any case in which his or her impartiality might reasonably be questioned. The New York canons of judicial conduct are clear. Judges must avoid not only impropriety, but also the appearance of impropriety. The test for the appearance of impropriety is whether a judge's conduct would create in reasonable minds, in this case, those of New Yorkers, a perception that the judge's ability to carry out judicial responsibilities with integrity, impartiality, and competence is impaired. No reasonable person would say that a judge whose husband was the victim of the crime she is presiding over could do so with integrity or impartiality, much less competence. If Judge Prescott stays on this case, it goes against everything she is sworn to do as Chief Judge, and it denigrates the very integrity of this court.
I'm Michael Ratner. I'm from the Center for Constitutional Rights in New York. We represent WikiLeaks and Julian Assange, and we're here in part because alleged sources for WikiLeaks we want to support. Jeremy Hammond is an alleged source for WikiLeaks with some of the most valuable documents out there on the internet. 5 million Stratfor emails. I'm here because I support Truthtellers. I support Truthtellers like Bradley Manning. I support Truthtellers like Jeremy Hammond and Julian Assange. And right now we're at a point in this government where they are hitting people with sledgehammers for telling the truth, because they don't want government and corporate corruption, hypocrisy, and criminality coming out. And just yesterday, our wonderful Attorney General announced a new policy, a tougher policy, one he said in which we're going to make truth-tellers, getting them, our priority. And the question I have is, how much of a priority more do they want to make it? They already killed Aaron Swartz. Jeremy Hammond is facing 39 years to life. Bradley Manning, life imprisonment. And Julian Assange, if they ever get him out of that embassy and into a prison here, will face the same. So I asked the government, what do they want to do? Put them up against the wall and just shoot the guys? I mean, it's an outrageous suppression of truth. And the struggle that's going on in this country right now is whether we're going to have a transparent government and corporations that are transparent, or are we going to continue dirty tricks, hypocrisy, and secrecy. And that's what this case, that's what Jeremy Hammond's case is about. I'm also here because I'm seeing unroll in front of me a travesty of justice, a case in which government informants were in on the case, in which the government itself bought the computer, entrapping the people involved in the case. I'm here because Jeremy Hammond did not get bail, which he absolutely should have had. I'm here because today, as Heidi and others have said, we're seeing a conflict of interest by the judge. As Heidi and the Guild said, she wakes up every morning with someone whose email was hacked in the Stratfor emails. This is a fair judge? Not at all. I'm here because I stand for a transparent government, transparent corporations, and privacy for all of us. We are on the verge of a major struggle in this country, and this case is critical to how we go forward. Will we have a democracy, or will we continue to have a government that suppresses the truth and its own criminality. So again, thank you all for being here with us to support Jeremy Hammond. Free Jeremy!
This is Luke Radowski here with Jason Hammond, the twin brother of Jeremy Hammond, who's facing life in jail without bail right now. Jason, a lot of people don't know about this case. Can you just give us the lowdown of exactly what's happening?
Yeah. So right now Jeremy is facing 4 counts of computer hacking, conspiracy computer hacking, involved in releasing Stratfor documents to WikiLeaks. Yeah, I feel personally that he's a target of a political prosecution, and what right now is what going on is that they're doing as much time as they possibly can for accused computer hackers, because, well, I personally feel that they really don't want this information to be known by the people, and it's sort of an essential role in a free democracy is that corporations and governments have open transparency towards their business. So right now Jeremy is facing, like you said, 30 years to life for this alleged hack. I feel that they need a fall guy for the whole thing, and they wanted to set a precedent with this, so they're pushing forward really hard.
This was a huge FBI sting operation with an informant. Being very close to this case, can you tell us what is the most outrageous action that you've seen personally take place in this case? Well,
A couple things. The denial of bail was pretty shocking because the judge said things that he was more dangerous than murderers, and that his powers are so crazy good that he could hack at an internet cafe credit card numbers if he were allowed on bail. So they still up in there and making it difficult for his process to view the information, his discovery. Also, there's a conflict of interest within the judge herself in the case, because her husband's email, Judge Laura Preston's husband email, is sort of wrapped up in the Stratfor leak. It's like within their company. He's a subscriber.
He was one of the victims whose emails and passwords were released, and this is the husband of the judge who's deciding on this case right now, and we're about to await a decision if she's going to recuse herself. What do you think is going to happen?
I assume she will, because it's her judicial duty to. Even if there's the visibility of impartiality, that it's her duty to do. So yeah, I kind of feel that. I hope she will. I think she will.
Can you tell us more about Jeremy? What kind of person he was, and to personalize him a little bit more?
Sure. Yeah. Well, having known Jeremy my whole life, I've seen him change and all this, but he was always a firm believer in the people's rights to information. He made newsletters when he was young. He was involved in school groups, and the later years of his life up until the arrest, he was involved in grassroots community activist groups. So he was fighting for various causes like immigrant rights, gay rights. He was fighting for anti-war. He has been a longtime protester in Chicago and elsewhere. So I feel it's another one of the reasons why that he's targeted for this is because he has many political arrests already in his history. So they feel that it would be an easy conviction, because the court would definitely possibly see that there was a motivation behind the hack.
Was there any protesting related charges, or mostly
in his history?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was arrested for protesting the Olympics. A couple other various. He was arrested at a gay rights protest too. So most of them were political.
Where can people find out more information, and how can we get involved?
If you want to be a volunteer for the Jeremy Hammond Defense Committee, we have the website freehammond.com and freehammond.org. They're both run by the Jeremy Hammond Defense Committee, which is myself and others. And you could donate there, and you could find out more information on his case, and you could volunteer to help in some way if you'd like. So yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Thanks to all the supporters, Free Anonymous, Solidarity Network. People have done a lot of solidarity work for Germany. I'm really appreciative of it. Yeah.
I am standing by the water, looking at the water, wishing I was water, so free. I am standing by the rocks, looking at the rocks, thinking that the rocks are me. And a leaf floats by like a butterfly, testifies to me. Only a fool could be bored on this earth. Nothing's lost till you call off the search, and nothing that matters is out of your reach. You're not the prisoner you thought you were, or the center of the universe. You're a big fish, but you are not the sea. So jump into the world and explore it. Nothing's lost till you stop looking for it. Nothing's lost. I am standing by the dancers, looking at the dancers, wishing I was dancing so free. I am standing on the floor, looking at the floor, the floor is me. And a song floats by like a butterfly, testifies to me. Only a fool could be bored on this earth. Nothing's lost till you call off the search, and nothing that matters is out of your reach. You're not the prisoner you thought you were, or the center of the universe. You're a big fish, but you are not the sea. So jump into the world and explore it. Nothing's lost till you stop looking for it. Nothing's lost. Nothing's lost. Nothing's lost.
Last week, Obama signed a cybersecurity executive order. The order came across as rather bland and reasonable to most privacy experts, including the ACLU, and this gave the overall impression that Obama has no intention of launching an attack on the internet. This was a smokescreen, and I'm going to show you why. On February 5th of 2013, the White House announced plans to establish a new interagency working group to counter online radicalization. The working group will be headed by the White House National Security Staff. Quinton Wiktorowicz, the Senior Director for Community Partnerships in the National Security Staff, made the following statement. Violent extremist groups like Al-Qaeda, its affiliates and its adherents, violent supremacist groups, and violent sovereign citizens are leveraging online tools and resources to propagate messages of violence and division It should be abundantly clear here that when they make this statement, they're trying to group in anti-government activists like us. And they're throwing us in with a mix of slurs to intentionally discredit us. Note the use of the adjective violent attached to sovereign citizens, and how they say that these groups are propagating messages of violence and division. Division being the key here, because that can be interpreted as any speech turning people against the US government. Now all this comes as CISPA, HR 624, passed the House and heads once again to the Senate. CISPA, or the Cyber Information Sharing and Protection Act, is geared towards setting up programs and infrastructure to make it easier for private companies to share user information with the government, as well as setting up provisions which effectively position officers of the US government inside such companies. Under CISPA, any information given to the government by private companies would be exempt from the Freedom of Information Act, meaning that citizens would have no means of verifying that their personal information had been handed over. The bill also makes those sharing this information with the government permanently immune from civil or criminal proceedings, both in state and federal courts. In this initial form, company cooperation with the program will be voluntary, but history shows that this is merely a foot-in-the-door tactic. This was evident in a quote recently made by Dutch Ruppersberger, the Baltimore County Democrat who is leading the charge to get CISPA passed. If we have a catastrophic cyber attack like 9/11, we'll get all the bills passed we want. But right now, we're focused on this bill. Ruppersberger was also quoted as saying, "It's almost as if we need to have another 9/11, and we can't," he said. "And that's why we need to do these things ahead of time." Now let's put this into perspective. With Obama's executive order which facilitates government sharing information to private companies, with CISPA which sets up the infrastructure for private companies to share user information to the government, with full immunity of course, and Obama's new working group to counter online radicalization targeting ideological extremists, what does that give us? It should be clear that they are laying the groundwork for a system which would allow the government to tag a citizen as a radical extremist and subsequently cut them off from private communication services such as the internet or hosting providers. Now, in its current form, this may not give the full authority that they desire. As Ruppersberger stated, they need a 9/11 type event to get what they really want. But these new moves will establish the early infrastructure and make the next stages easier. The second point that should be obvious here is that the hacking activities of Anonymous are being used to justify these new laws. I personally don't know if those carrying out these hacks in anonymous names are sincere or if there's something more malicious at foot. It's actually impossible to say because Anonymous is by definition faceless and therefore completely unaccountable and unverifiable. Anyone can set up an account with a Guy Fawkes mask and a disguised voice and call themselves Anonymous. In fact, it should be clear that this is already happening. The entire concept of Anonymous is inherently flawed for this very reason. Yes, there are some formidable hackers using the label, and maybe those who have been attacking the US government websites recently were trying to help the cause of freedom. But the reality of the matter is that this isn't helping the cause. We aren't going to win by hacking websites. The powers that be aren't in control because we lack some piece of secret information. We have plenty of information. The powers that be are in control because the sleeping masses don't want to see what's right in front of their eyes. This is what we have to change if we want to make a difference. Hacking a government network is an act of war. And in the paradigm of war, the government is in its element. Just look at the quotes by Ruppersberger. It should be clear, they want you to attack. This will give them the excuse to pass the proposals that they already have waiting in the wings. Proposals like the National Strategy for Trusted Identities in Cyberspace, endorsed by the White House, essentially marking the beginning of the end of online anonymity. I've made numerous statements in the past telling people to call out those who are proposing the initiation of violence. Even if it hasn't sunk in for you just how important the non-aggression principle is on a philosophical level, it should be important at this point why it's so important on a tactical level. The same principle applies to online attacks as well. Breaking into business and government networks isn't going to help us right now. It's only going to create the pretext for new laws. Activists need to be very clear about that. Yes, the government is corrupt. Yes, these corporations are corrupt. And yes, it may be morally justifiable to disrupt those systems, but it is strategically and tactically ill-conceived to do so at this particular point in time. The next stage of this police state takeover is going to target political dissidents. Don't make it easier for them.
That's all.